It was late in the school day, and I, Emma, was supposed to be in science class, but I couldn't stand the subject, or the teacher for that matter. With zero interest in sitting through another dull lesson, I decided to skip it and sneak off to the bathroom at the edge of the school. It was an isolated spot, far from the bustling hallways, where hardly anyone ever went. Perfect for staying out of sight. I slipped into the last stall, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling through a game to kill time. The minutes crawled by, but I didn't care. I was free from class. Then, out of nowhere, the principal's voice boomed over the loudspeaker. "Lockdown! Lockdown! This is an emergency. Follow lockdown procedures immediately. Find the nearest room, secure the door, and switch off all lights." The sudden noise jolted me, but I didn't panic right away. We'd had lockdown drills before, and they were always fake. I figured I'd just wait it out in the stall like I'd planned. But then, everything changed. The lights flickered and died all at once. The faint buzz of the overhead bulbs and the air vents stopped, leaving the bathroom in total darkness. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't how drills worked. The power never went out. A cold dread started creeping up my spine as I realized this might be real. I grabbed my phone, its screen glowing faintly in the dark, and texted my friend Lily. "Is this lockdown for real?" She replied almost instantly. "Yes, where are you? Everyone's freaking out looking for you." "I'm in the bathroom near the back," I sent back. "Hide. There's some guy with a knife trying to break into rooms." My heart slammed against my ribs. A real lockdown. With a knife-wielding lunatic? I was already hidden. But now I felt like a sitting duck. Running into the hallway wasn't an option. It was too dangerous. So I stayed put, hunching down in the stall, trying to make myself invisible. I turned my phone's brightness to the lowest setting, afraid even that tiny light might give me away. "What's happening?" I texted Lily again. After a few agonizing minutes, she answered. "Some kid tried to rob a shop nearby with a knife. He attacked people, then bolted into the school to hide." I switched off my phone completely, terrified the glow might betray me. The silence was suffocating. I strained to hear anything. Every creak, every shuffle. Then, footsteps echoed outside, fast and frantic, followed by the bathroom door swinging open with a slow, eerie groan. I froze as someone stepped inside. Their shoes tapped against the tiles, steady and deliberate, until they entered the stall right next to mine and shut the door. My pulse roared in my ears. Was this the guy with the knife? Minutes dragged by, each one heavier than the last. I couldn't take the suspense anymore. In a trembling whisper, I said, "Who's there?" A beat of silence, then a voice answered, "I'm hiding too." Heard the lockdown on the speakers. It sounded like a kid, maybe my age, but that didn't ease the knot in my stomach. We didn't speak again, just sat there, trapped in the quiet. Finally, the principal's voice crackled over the intercom. "All students, proceed to the front exits in an orderly manner. Police are stationed outside." I stood on shaky legs and stepped out of the stall. The other person didn't move. "You coming?" I asked. "Yeah, just hang on a sec," they mumbled. That felt off, but I was too desperate to escape to care. I bolted from the bathroom and hurried toward the front of the school. Halfway there, my phone buzzed. Lily's text read, "They say the guy's still inside, hiding somewhere in the back." Ice flooded my veins. The back, that's where I'd been. The person in the stall. Could it have been him? I sprinted the rest of the way, bursting outside where cops were waiting. I spilled everything to an officer, how I'd been in the bathroom, the stranger next to me. They searched the area and found the bathroom empty, but a window was smashed open. He'd slipped away. For days after, kids at school wouldn't stop talking about me, which I despised. They never caught the guy, and I still shiver thinking I might have been inches from him, clueless in the dark. That scare flipped a switch in me. I realized how fast things can spiral, and I never skipped class again. It was the final day of my middle school years, a day that should have been filled with joy and celebration. The school had organized a field day where students engaged in various games and activities to mark the end of the academic year. However, I found myself sidelined, unable to participate due to a recent injury. Just a week prior, I had twisted my ankle severely while playing soccer, and the doctor had strictly advised against any physical activity. While my friends headed to the gymnasium for the festivities, I was left to find another way to spend the day. With a heavy heart, I made my way to my homeroom classroom. The room was quiet, the usual buzz of students replaced by an eerie silence. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows on the empty desks. I chose a seat near the back, where I could gaze out at the playground and perhaps catch a glimpse of the activities I was missing. I had brought a fantasy novel that I had been meaning to finish, hoping it would distract me from the disappointment. As I settled into the chair, I couldn't help but feel isolated. It was strange being alone in a classroom that was typically filled with chatter and movement. I tried to focus on my book, but my mind kept wandering to the sounds of cheering and laughter that faintly echoed from the gymnasium. About an hour later, I heard footsteps approaching. I looked up from my book, expecting to see a teacher checking in on me. Instead, a man I had never seen before stepped through the doorway. He appeared to be in his late 40s, with disheveled hair and a weathered face. His clothes were rumpled, and there was something unsettling about his demeanor. He closed the door behind him with a soft click, and I felt a twinge of unease. "Hello?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you looking for someone?" The man turned to face me, his eyes narrowing slightly. "No," he replied curtly, his tone carrying an edge that made me uncomfortable. I swallowed hard. "Well, the students are all at the field day in the gym," I offered, hoping he would leave. He didn't respond. Instead, he began to walk slowly towards me, his gaze fixed on me with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. My heart started to race as I realized that something was very wrong. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice trembling. Without warning, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, gleaming object. It took me a moment to register that it was a knife. "Listen carefully," he said in a low, menacing voice. "You're going to come with me, and you're not going to make a sound. If you do, I'll make sure you regret it." Terror gripped me like a vice. I was alone, defenseless, and this man was threatening me with a weapon. My mind raced, searching for a way out, but I was frozen in place. Just as he took another step towards me, the blaring sound of the school's lockdown alarm pierced the air. The sudden noise startled both of us, and for a split second, the man's attention wavered. I could see the panic in his eyes as he realized that his plan was unraveling. From the hallway, I heard hurried footsteps and muffled voices. The man cursed under his breath and turned towards the door. "Stay here," he barked at me, but his voice lacked the confidence it had moments ago. Before I could fully comprehend what was happening, he bolted out of the classroom and disappeared down the corridor. I sat there, my heart pounding, trying to process the surreal experience I had just endured. Minutes later, the door burst open again, and my science teacher, Ms. Thompson, rushed in. Her face was pale with worry. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice shaky. I nodded, still in shock. "There was a man. He had a knife. He tried to take me," I managed to stammer. Ms. Thompson's eyes widened in horror. She immediately called for help, and soon, the school was swarming with police officers. They searched the building but couldn't find the intruder. Later, they discovered that a window in the back of the school had been forced open, suggesting that's how he had entered and possibly escaped. It turned out that the man had been lurking around the school for a while, and someone had reported suspicious activity, which led to the lockdown. The police believed he was attempting to abduct a student, and I was likely his target. The incident left me deeply unsettled. For a long time, I couldn't shake off the fear and the what-ifs. What if the alarm hadn't gone off? What if he had succeeded in taking me? The thought was too horrifying to dwell on. Even now, years later, I still remember that day vividly. It was a stark reminder of how quickly things can go wrong and how important it is to be vigilant. I'm grateful that the school's safety measures worked when they were needed most, and I hope that sharing this story can help others stay aware and safe. It was late September, and I, Ms. Harper, had just begun my first year teaching at a small elementary school, nestled in a peaceful suburban area. I was still adjusting to my role as a first-grade teacher, overseeing a bustling group of 26-year-olds. The school year had barely started, and I was already overwhelmed by the constant energy of my students and my own novice mistakes. Despite the challenges, I adored their curiosity, even if it often left me scrambling to keep up. On a cool Wednesday morning, I was guiding the class through a spelling activity, having them write words like sun and hat on their worksheets. The room was filled with the soft hum of pencils scratching paper when the principal's voice suddenly blared through the intercom. "Attention, all staff and students. This is a lockdown. This is not a drill. Secure your classrooms now." My heart skipped a beat. As a new teacher, I hadn't been told when lockdown drills were scheduled, so I wasn't sure if this was real or just practice. Either way, I knew what to do. I flicked off the lights, locked the door, and motioned for the kids to move to the back wall, out of sight from the windows. "Shh, everyone, stay quiet," I whispered, trying to sound calm as they shuffled into place. The classroom grew unnaturally still. The only sound was my shallow breathing as I strained to listen for anything unusual. Minutes ticked by, maybe 5 or 6, when a faint banging echoed from somewhere down the hall. It started soft, like a distant drum, but grew sharper, more insistent. My chest tightened. Was this part of a drill? I'd heard that staff sometimes tested doors during practice, but this felt wrong. Too forceful, too chaotic. Then, one of my students, a boy named Liam, let out a small, frightened whimper. Before I could hush him, it turned into a full cry, loud enough to pierce the silence. I froze, praying it hadn't carried beyond the room. But the banging stopped abruptly, replaced by the slow, deliberate sound of footsteps approaching our door. I clenched my fists, barely breathing. The steps paused right outside. A rough male voice muttered, "Hey, I think I heard something in there. Sounds like kids." Panic surged through me. This wasn't a drill. There were actual intruders in the school. More voices joined the first, low and urgent. "Come on, let's check it out," someone barked. The doorknob jiggled, followed by a loud thud as something, or someone, slammed against it. The kids gasped, some sobbing quietly, others clutching my arms. I wanted to protect them, but I felt powerless. No training had prepared me for this nightmare. The door shook with each hit, wood creaking under the strain. Just as I thought it might give, 2 loud bangs rang out, gunshots, sharp and unmistakable. The assault on the door stopped instantly. I heard frantic footsteps retreating down the corridor. Relief washed over me, but I didn't dare move. Those shots, were they from the intruders or someone else? We stayed huddled in silence, the minutes dragging on like hours, until the principal's voice crackled over the speaker again. "All clear. The lockdown is lifted. Please remain in your rooms until instructed otherwise." When the police finally cleared us to leave, I got the full story. The intruders were 3 teenagers from a local high school. They'd stormed in with crude weapons, no guns, thankfully, claiming it was a dare that spiraled out of control. The police had fired warning shots into the floor to drive them off, which explained the sounds I'd heard. The teens were caught soon after, but their vague excuses didn't sit right with me. The terror in my students' faces, the aggression against our door, it didn't feel like a prank. No one was physically harmed, but the aftermath lingered. Parents demanded tighter security, and the school buzzed with unease for weeks. My students struggled. Some woke from bad dreams, others hesitated to return to class. I felt the weight of their fear alongside my own. 2 years later, I still teach first grade in that same room at the same school. The door's been fixed, but faint scuff marks hint at where it was nearly forced open. Down the hall, the bullet holes in the floor remain, patched but visible, a quiet testament to that day. I've since thrown myself into every training session, learning every procedure by heart. I'm more alert now, more cautious. Yet, no matter how ready I try to be, the memory of that lockdown, the day it wasn't just a drill, still haunts me. It's a fear I can't unlearn, etched into every quiet moment in that classroom.